Garrett Riley's still here, and he's not leaving on his own.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked On Clemson, part-time host and producer over on 105.5 FM The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network. Thank you so much to all the everydayers out there who stick with us Monday through Friday every single week. And if you're not yet an everydayer, well, what are you waiting for? Hit that follow, hit that subscribe so you never miss another episode. Exclusive Clemson content all throughout the season of football and off-season basketball, baseball, you name it. We will be here, or I will be here with you. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Today's rundown has got a lot to do with the offensive coordinator in Garrett Riley. The last part of the show will touch base on some basketball, bad news for basketball, but we're going to really kind of cover the bowl game and then start you all off with some discussion on Garrett Riley. Garrett Riley finally got back in front of the microphone for the press conference leading up to the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl, Clemson Penn State, that's going to be happening in just 10 days. And the entire press conference boils down to one truth, or maybe for some people, an uncomfortable truth for Clemson and for the head coach, Dabo Swinney. Garrett Riley, contrary to popular belief, is not leaving. He's not going anywhere. Maybe his name had been thrown in the hat of a few places, but we know how that goes. It could have been that it was just speculation, but we know that Garrett Riley is going to be here, and he wants to be here. The decision fully shifts to the fact that, does Dabo Swinney want him to be there? Does Graham Neff and the board of directors want him to be there? Does the big boosters want him to be there? I've already told you my opinion on it. I want Garrett Riley to stick around. I've seen what he can do with Cade Klubnik, but in a lot of ways, I feel as if a lot of what he couldn't do was because of Cade Klubnik. Dabo has got to do a better job of providing him with a quarterback who can be trusted, who can win games, who can make critical decisions in situations that are stressful. And Dabo's also got to do a better job with admitting that his roster is not where he thinks it is in his head. The offensive line is not where he thinks it is in his head. And the running back room is, while not bad, not where he thinks it is in his head. And the whole depth of the whole team really is just not what a reflection of how he promoted it. Garrett Riley was linked to North Texas, Coastal Carolina. Neither of those jobs materialized. That matters because there's no clean exit that some people were talking about. That would make the situation much easier if you did want to get rid of Garrett Riley. You know, if he took a promotion, much like what Tony Elliott did, everybody was sort of relieved that Tony Elliott moved on. Now, a lot of people want Tony Elliott back. Could that happen with Garrett Riley as well? Very easily so. Doesn't seem like there's any other school out there that's willing to grab him or poach him or throw up enough money, or even if that was something that was realistic. No postseason narrative of losing a coordinator to another job. That's not going to happen. So Garrett Riley is still on the team. He's still on the staff, and he's still working to build the 2026 football team and beyond. And he's still working to prepare for Penn State. And publicly saying, in my opinion, all the right things about Clemson being a great place to live, being a great place to work. And again, it goes back to, yes, there were a lot of frustrations there. But I could be devil's advocate for Garrett Riley, and I've done this on the radio where I've been Garrett Riley's lawyer. And I could say that, Garrett Riley abandoned the run, and you're right, he did. But the offensive line, especially early on in the season, was nothing to write home about and was actually horrible all season, for the most part against the run until they got into the ACC. And there could be a lot of argument there that the ACC, opponents weren't that strong. I could see where you could say that, but also the offensive line, it's hard to work with that. It's hard to work with Cade Klubnik, who is limited to 1 or 2 reads in a check down, maybe 2 reads. Cade Klubnik, who really didn't use his legs much, and who couldn't be trusted to sit in the pocket. I'd like to see Garrett Riley with someone else, to be honest with you. That's my opinion. Now, Garrett Riley seems as if he's interested in staying at Clemson. All of the returns that I have heard is that Dabo Swinney also is interested in keeping him for 2026. Just a few years removed from a Broyles Award-winning season for him. Preseason expectations, though, did not live up. The whole season did not live up to it. Clemson, 20th in passing offense. So they were very successful passing the ball, but that comes in the context of they were 47th total offense. That's not good enough. 60th in scoring, 99th in rushing. Those are terrible stats. And so Clemson was not balanced this year. And you could even argue that Brandon Streeter in just 1 year in 1 year where he was let go, had a better 1 year than Garrett Riley had this past season. And we're talking about keeping Riley, so I can understand that. This was supposed to be the year. That was the problem. Cade Klubnik's a senior. Offensive line was supposed to be very experienced. Wide receiver room was talked nationally about being elite, and they ended up ultimately being that, in my opinion. Instead, the offense never really found consistency week over week, never really found a true identity. Most weekends, you didn't really know what was going to be their true identity that they were going to try to establish. It wasn't until later on in the season that they started to really believe that they should run the ball first and establish that and build off of that. What's interesting is where Riley's focus actually went during his press conference. He did not sell any sort of evolution. He did not promise any changes. He talked about the practices. He talked about this bowl season being developmental. He mentioned Juju Preston directly as someone who has been flashing, someone who he feels like could be someone who matters in 2026. That tells you something without telling you something. Internally, they are looking ahead for 2026. They're trying to identify in this bowl game who is going to fit, who is going to be people who they can, or players they can build upon. He was also very clear that the bowl plan is going to be limited by who is available, and they're going to be focused on their strategy of who is actually there. This is not coach speak. This is reality. This is the backup bowl, as a lot of the Penn State fans in the comments have been telling me. And that is a big problem. Cade Klubnik is expected to play, and this will be the final game together, and I'm really honestly looking forward to that, just to see how well they can do. One last hurrah, but I don't want to see any more of it. I don't need any more reruns of this, but one more game, why not? This whole offseason matters maybe the most ever in Dabo Swinney's tenure, because he's got to show that he can rebound from this, from really 2 out of 3 seasons that finished less than expectations at the beginning of the season. All right, hey, hang with me. Segment 2 here on Locked On Clemson, we're going to talk about the December tryouts, or if you will, the bowl game tryouts for Clemson in the Pinstripe Bowl. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what making live bets with FanDuel is so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump right into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. You can bet the next touchdown scores, the drive results, the scores, the totals. It keeps you locked in every snap, every drive, every possibility. And you know I like it because, man, my fantasy team is out. So this kind of stuff really gets me back in the action. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com, and you can place NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You're already living your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Clemson with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonclemson.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, we're back with segment number 2 here on Locked On Clemson, continuing to discuss what Garrett Riley said in his post-game or his pre-bowl press conference. Riley repeatedly framed the bowl prep this offseason as less game planning and more along the lines of accelerated development. And to me, this is all purposeful. He flat out said these practices are about banking reps for the next season and getting the young talent more opportunities and getting developmental players ready and giving them opportunity to really show what they can do and giving them, well, we'll say giving some more runway, if you will. When a coordinator emphasizes stuff like this to me, and being so passionate about it, it usually signals a few things for me. One is that the staff has a pretty clear idea of who is leaving, who's not going to be available, who is not going to be a part of their future. There's still some speculations here and there, but you know, this team has really seen we know that they're not going to be like 27 players right now, but we know that there could be more leaving. And so, you know, this team knows what their gauge is right now. Dabo has done those end of the season discussions with some of the players. And so they're prepping for this game and trying to decide what they can do to build up for 2026. The evaluation for 2026, again, the second thing for me, the first thing is that the staff kind of understands who is going to be part of the future. The second thing is, since they know that, they need to start the evaluation and do that immediately. And that is what this game is going to be about. The bowl game is going to be about looking at some of the newer players, some of the less used players, and seeing what they can bring to the table. Again, he mentioned Juju Preston by name, and to me, unprompted as well, that could be very important. Coaches rarely seem to, especially on Clemson, they rarely seem to pick out or single one player unless they do want fans or the media like me to notice him. And we'll see if that all works out or if that's just smoke and mirrors. Maybe you can tell me what you think, but it's really kind of how they are trying to frame it. Clemson's bowl game against Penn State is the unofficial starting point, if you will, of the 2026 depth chart. You know, could you say it's a meaningless bowl game? Yes, but it's not necessarily a meaningless exhibition altogether. Yes, does it do anything for 2025? No. But could it be doing something for 2026? Yes, I think so. You know, it was a subtle hint to what Clemson is looking forward to and how Garrett Riley is trying to frame things. it doesn't seem like he's focused heavily on beating Penn State at all. And I don't think he should, because I already feel, and maybe this is just a nervous fan in me, but it seems as if Penn State is set up for success to just run absolutely all over Clemson's defense. I don't think there's going to be any accident that Clemson is not going to be able to stop Penn State's rushing attack, and they're just traditional, professional style, run it up the gut, run it down your throat. They got a great running back in Katron Allen, and even though they don't have Nick Singleton, he's really only been used in the red zone. But we know what Garrett Riley's mindset is, and he has an intentional decision to emphasize this is about extra practices. It's about extra reps. It's about accelerated development. It's about starting the offseason in December and not in the spring, and really heavily leaning on the players that they know will be there next year. And that kind of, as I say that out loud, kind of makes me wonder about Cade Klubnik. I mean, they're going to use him because he's available and he's their best option, but he's not going to be there in 2026. And I can understand why a lot of people in the comments are saying, well, Morg, we need to just move on from Cade Klubnik. I mean, this is not, they're going to be trying to develop other players, but not him. And that is true. It seems as if they're going to take the seniors that they want and use them. So there's a little bit of, you don't want to get embarrassed out there. You want to put your best players out there. But I do believe there's going to be a lot of rotation, more than maybe in most regular season games. It's evaluation time. It's about looking and seeing how well they do against live competition. The Penn State game matters. Again, overall, it's kind of like a glorified spring game. And I've told you, I'd love to see the spring games where they actually play a real opponent, because what they've turned it into is just more of a showcase of specific drives or situational events and plays than an actual game. I'd like to see Clemson get rid of, or really all college football, get rid of their, what you would say, cupcake games, and turn those into the spring games. It is good to see from a long-term Clemson fan. We can be frustrated on 2025 as long as we want. But when you're thinking long-term, this game is going to be important to see what Clemson has in certain players for 2026. Now, could we see Darren Mayo get some opportunities? It'd be exciting. Could we see some other guys get some opportunities that maybe haven't this year? Jeremiah Alexander is going to get a little bit more reps because he's not behind Wade Woodaz, because Wade Woodaz is out injured. So looking to see who is kind of got that early start to me, and maybe give a little bit of clarity around who Clemson can use going forward. They've also been kind of playing a little bit of musical chairs at practice. Garrett Riley openly admitted that because of availability problems and injuries and everything, the practices have been very inconsistent. Not in the frame of frustration, at least that's not how I read it, but it's more of just kind of being honest with what they're seeing out there. They're not having a full set of guys that they've had in the regular season as their starters. And so the consistency has been fluctuating up and down, and the ability to make plays or continue drives and having success in their practice work is going up and down as well. A lot of these guys who have been sitting behind veterans and not been getting their opportunities are now getting pushed forward and having to kind of prove that they know how to run the playbook. A lot of what I think you're going to see in 10 days is how well this team can respond to mistakes, because when you have this type of situation, there's going to be a lot of mistakes. I think a higher level of mistakes in a developmental type game, in a early spring game type game, a winter game, if you will. This is truly one of those situations where it's an evaluation on the coach's side of things. But from a player standpoint, I would take it as an audition. All right. Hey, segment 3, the final segment of the show, we're going to discuss Zach Foster, switch over to some basketball talk and give you some thoughts on him and his injury right here on Locked On Clemson. The holidays are here, and whether you're hosting family, planning the perfect gift, or just trying to keep things simple and delicious, Omaha Steaks is making it easier than ever. From effortless holiday entertaining to unforgettable gifts, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience right to your door. And what makes it even better, with Omaha Steaks, you can always know exactly what you're gifting. USDA certified tender steaks, premium proteins, gourmet sides, and decadent desserts that make anyone feel appreciated. They have so many options. You got steaks, you got burgers, you actually even got chicken, pork, seafood, desserts, something for everyone this holiday season and for every holiday gathering. It's become one of my favorite last-minute gifts because it feels thoughtful without requiring a ton of stress. So save big on gourmet gifts and holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com, and for an extra $35 off, use code LOCKEDONCollege. Use code college, at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. Use code college. That's omahasteaks.com. Promo code college. All right, segment 3 here on Locked On Clemson. We're going to finish it up with some basketball talk. I really haven't given you a ton of basketball talk because I still think it's very early. And Clemson had a game against the South Carolina Gamecocks in which they did win, although it was kind of ugly. If they had been shooting much better, they would have really probably won by 30 points. But it wasn't very pretty against the Gamecocks. But the biggest thing that made it worse of all is that Zach Foster was injured early on in the game. And this is one of those nights where Clemson wins the rivalry game, but walks off the floor feeling like it lost something bigger. And that something is Zach Foster. Zach Foster suffered a torn ACL. So his freshman season is now over. He played just 2 minutes against the Gamecocks, scored just 2 points, and then was unable to return. He kind of twisted his leg and fell to the ground. It didn't seem super violent or weird, kind of gruesome or anything like that. But it did seem like it was going to be bad news when you saw it live. The MRI from today confirmed it. Brad Brownell said all the right things because, frankly, there's nothing else you can really say in this moment other than, you lost one of your stars or your future stars earlier than you had really anticipated or even wanted. Foster was averaging 7.4 points per game, 3.1 rebounds per game, and he was already he already had a 12-point game against Alabama. And if you watch Clemson basketball this year, he's an impact player. He's more than just like a bench loss. To me, that this kind of is going to hurt Clemson in the 2025-2026 season more than just this one game and really more than just, kind of delaying the future. But a lot of people in the comments on social media have been agreeing with me here is that Zach Foster has the highest ceiling on the team, at least on this current roster. And he was just barely getting started. And to me, that's the key. He was not Clemson's best player, not yet anyways. And he might have been maybe getting closer to being the best player or one of the best players by the end of February, early March. His defense has been really great. His ball handling looks, just really natural. A very willing and confident shooter. He played pretty fast, but I wouldn't say fast in a way of recklessness. He was very methodical, a combination type player that just is very rare as a freshman. So this injury hurts big time. It removes not only the player, but his production, and it removes the possible upside late season. It removes, to me, what this team could have been in the tournament. And that really matters when you talk about getting into late ACC play, when you talk about getting into the NCAA tournament or the ACC tournament. Clemson now is going to have to take a step back, and their full potential is now kind of taking a hit. Maybe not right now has taken as much of a hit, but in the future, especially in this season, has taken a hit. And it's been very emotional, very frustrating past couple of days, especially after the South Carolina game. I think overall frustrated fans too after watching it. South Carolina was extremely physical, and kind of seemed to play very aggressive. I know that the rivalry is there, but it seemed as if a lot of things could have been called that weren't. I don't know. I don't believe that the play was necessarily dirty, but a lot of people felt like they were coming out there. They knew that they couldn't beat Clemson straight up, so they were coming out to play rough and physical, to the point of causing an injury. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that when I watched the play over that I felt like it was intentional. I don't think anybody intentionally tears an ACL of another player, but they were definitely playing pretty aggressive against Clemson. But the most important part about this is not the frustration with your rival, not the sadness or disappointment with what could have been, but it really now is where the adjustment is going to be. Ace Buckner had a good game. I believe that he could be one of those guys that could come up and step into that spot and be a reliable contributor in the minutes that now Zach Foster is not going to take up. Dallas Thomas got a couple of minutes, I believe, and Dylan Hunter's role may grow a little bit, but ultimately the margin of error has got to shrink. You got to think that. I mean, this team is still good. I don't believe their identity changes at all, but the what could have been is definitely going to be a lingering question for the rest of the season. And, long view on Zach Foster is the injury stinks. There's no sugarcoating about it. I've tore my right ACL playing basketball twice. And so the rehab, I will tell you, has come a long way over the past, 10 years since it happened to me, or maybe, 15 years now since it's happened to me. But so it's not a death sentence to his career. It's not the season. It's not a career ender for him at all. It is definitely a setback. As Deshaun Watson said about his ACL tear, minor setback for a major comeback. And so this will, at least it's earlier on in the season, so this will allow him to kind of get through without having to rush through things and kind of clearly work his way back through rehab properly. Because I believe that from my experience, I rushed through rehab, and that caused some problems later on when I got back into basketball and got injured again. So hopefully he can take the time, even though nowadays, man, they get done in I remember Amari Rodgers getting it in 6 months. He was back, but not everybody's like that. Their bodies are different, and the type of surgery is different, and the type of recovery is different for everyone. So wishing Zach Foster all the love and support and prayers out there for a quick recovery. It does stink for the Clemson basketball team. We'll see how Brad Brownell can adjust moving forward. All right. Hey, thank you so much again for tuning in to today's podcast. Tomorrow on the Thursday show, we'll continue to get you prepped for that Clemson versus Penn State matchup. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Clemson so you get all the latest episodes. You can find me on social media at the Morgan T Show over on X. If you need a last-minute holiday gift or someone keeps asking what you want, make it easy on them. Ask for the Everydayer Club, ad-free episodes of this show, exclusive Discord server access, and more. Subscriptions can be gifted through the link on lockedonclemson.supercast.com. or in the description on this video or podcast. For those of you on video, we'll send you over to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And on your audio, please take the time to make sure your second listen is Locked On College Football. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see you at the top of the hill.